The smell of burnt tea drifted out of the kitchen before the paper poppers could go off. I stood in the middle of a room full of ivory balloons, cradling a cake with 7 short candles, listening to the clinking of spoons on glasses like little fish flicking their tails against the rim of a bowl. The warm light pooled across my son's suit jacket, making the seam along his spine glow like a knife's edge. As people counted down 7, 6, 5, I saw my face faintly reflected in the white frosting, blurred by my own breath. 4, 3, 2. "Stop embarrassing us, Mother." Michael's voice cut in, dry as the edge of a cracked glass. He didn't shout, but the room froze like a still frame, someone's arm left hanging mid-air, flecks of glitter suspended in the light. Someone coughed. Someone chuckled awkwardly. Someone avoided my eyes as if that sentence had been a stray arrow. I set the cake down and heard, with painful clarity, a sound that didn't exist. A clock stopping its tick-tock. The silver pocket watch was somewhere. I knew it. Its chill still lay on my skin, a faded string of numbers etched on its back that no one remembered. Back then, whenever I heard that tick-tock, time moved on a child's legs stumbling, then running, then falling. Today, it was silent, and that silence poured into my bones, thickening like the first layer of winter ice. "We told you already, don't tell old stories in front of guests." Michael glanced over his shoulder, where Sarah was tucked against him, her hand tightening around her wineglass. "We." That word touched the softest place in me, like a stranger's hand laid on the edge of the bed at midnight. I smiled a smile my skin didn't have time to report to my heart. "I just wanted to say thank you," I said, and in my head I heard wind slipping through the doorframe. Fragments hovered at the lip of memory. A night hallway, the kitchen light pale and greenish, the smell of burnt tea threading over my shoulder. Small footsteps running, then stopping. A man's voice. "Don't tell anyone." A hand settling on the lid of a wooden box. The watch tucked beneath the tablecloth, the minute hand covering the hour like 2 blades of grass. "Michael," I called softly, but his name was a dry rag in my mouth. He had already turned away, laughing with someone, as if what he'd said had been a pair of scissors snipping the last thread between us. Sarah looked at me with her particular kind of pity, gentle and still a lid. Anna, my granddaughter, slipped through the crowd and brushed my wrist. "Make a wish, Grandma." 70 and still wishing, someone joked. What should I wish for? I wished for the tick-tock to come back. I wished for the courage to reach into the drawer right now, in front of everyone, and pull out the silver thing that froze the night of 1979. "Blow the candles!" they shouted. I drew a breath, the wax and scorched sugar stinging my eyes, and in that flutter of breath an image flared. A child's hand pressed to a rain-blotted window, droplets creeping over skin. I blew. Candle smoke curled up, thin as a late apology. The lights shattered across my forehead into small pieces I knew how to pick up. I'd practiced. But amid the scattered clapping, a tiny knocking sounded in my ear. Tap, tap, tap. No one heard it but me. 3 knocks just like that night. I set the cake knife on the plate. The tip squealed against the glaze. "Thank you, everyone," I said, my voice a taut wire pulled across the room. Then I stepped back, just one step enough to slip out of the circle and out of my son's sight line. In the brief dim of the hall that links the kitchen and living room, the smell of burnt tea sharpened, and I knew it was very close. Close enough that if I reached into the lower drawer, I'd touch cold silver, and maybe time would consent to speak. I took one more step back, letting the laughter in the living room swallow the silence. Guests deliberately raised their voices, lifted their glasses a little higher, as if this had all been a tiny misunderstanding. But my ears still rang with Michael's words, "Stop embarrassing us, Mother." They weren't sound anymore. They were a long, stinging cut I couldn't cover. I wondered what I had done wrong. I only meant to tell a small old story how he fell in the rose garden, scraped his knee, and his father scooped him up. Just an ordinary memory. Yet he looked at me like a stranger, like someone who could wreck the careful image he'd built for years. I turned and walked down the hall to the kitchen. There the smell of burnt tea grew thick and acrid, like cinders. I closed my eyes, and at once I saw that old kitchen yellow flame, steam fogging the window, a child's strangled voice. "Mom, please, open the door for me." I lunged toward the sound, but the tile under my feet went hard as stone. The memory snapped. Only a dense silence remained. I opened my eyes and touched the lip of the wooden cabinet. In this drawer it still lay the silver pocket watch, cold, heavy, the glass face hairline cracked, the thing that went silent the night everything began. Back then, a man's breath warmed my ear. "Don't tell anyone." And I obeyed 40 years. "Grandma, why are you in here?" Anna's voice startled me. She stood at the head of the hall, eyes bright and clear. She didn't look like her mother. She didn't look like her father. That gaze like she was waiting for me to lift the lid on the past. I bent and smoothed a hand over her shoulder. "I was just remembering a few things." "What things?" she asked, innocent as only a child can be. I smiled, and it felt like breaking. "You don't know a thing, sweetheart." When I returned to the living room, Michael had melted back into the crowd, talking and laughing as if he hadn't thrown a knife at me. Sarah shot me a glance, half pity, half guard. I raised my glass to thank everyone, but my voice fell apart in the music, and right then, in my head, 3 slow knocks. Tap, tap, tap. No one heard, only me. The same rhythm as the night the silver watch stopped. I stood still, knowing this. The current of time was calling me back. After the party, the house sank into clinks of cutlery and the residue of wine. Michael saw the guests out, face carefully polite, while I slipped upstairs. In the hall, the yellow light fell over the crooked family frames. One of Michael as a boy in a blue sweater, clutching a puppy. I touched the wood, fingertips trembling, as if I were pressing on an old wound that had scabbed but never healed. In my bedroom, I sat on the old bed. The vanity drawer was heavy as ever. I pulled it open. The must of old paper breathed up at me. In a corner, tucked between handkerchiefs, a folded sheet, edges yellowed. I opened it. The handwriting shook. Ink blurred with water. "If you find this, don't." The sentence cut off. A bloom of ink spread, as if someone had tried to stop it. I stared at that blank space, as though my eyes could finish the line. Memory slammed in. A room half lit. A man slumped in a chair, breathing hard, tobacco stinging the air, the reek of burnt tea. He gave me the paper, his palm cold with sweat. "Don't let anyone know, not even Michael." His voice was hoarse and shaking. In his eyes something pleaded and threatened all at once. I clutched the paper like a hot coal. Outside the door, small feet ran past, then pounding, urgent knocking. "Mom! Mom, open up!" I meant to stand, but he gripped my wrist. "Sit still." I opened my eyes back in the present room. The paper shivered in my hand. My vision swam, but that half sentence was sharp as glass. "If you find this, don't what? Don't open it. Don't trust anyone. Don't forgive." Downstairs, Michael's voice floated up, dry as dust. "Mom, stop letting this house get so messy." The words pinned the air like a nail. I folded the note and slipped it into my cardigan pocket. Some truths can't be buried forever. That night, when everyone slept, I sat alone in the kitchen. The weak yellow bulb puddled over the scarred tabletop. On it, the old note lay open again, its half-line like a wound that refused to close. "If you find this, don't." I whispered it aloud, then stopped. Outside, wind threaded through the leaves, carrying damp earth and a sniff of someone's smoke. But most of all, I smelled burnt tea, that stubborn stain from a memory I'd tried to scrub away for years. The memory swung open like a door. A winter evening. I was young, in a cotton flower dress. Michael was 8, huddled in the kitchen corner, eyes red. His father stood over him, fist wrapped around the silver watch. "Don't tell anyone," he ground out, his gaze casting a shadow over the boy's face. "No one is allowed to know this." Michael trembled, nodding over and over. I pressed into the corner, frozen through. There was a scream in my throat, but an invisible hand choked it off. That night I kept silent. I let my child learn the shape of secrecy from that man. A spoon clattered in the present kitchen. I jolted. Anna stood there, hair mussed, glass of water in hand. "Grandma, you're still up?" I hid the note in my palm and pasted on a smile. "Couldn't sleep." She sat across from me, chin propped on her hand. "Dad always says you do weird things, but I think you're just a little sad." I met her eyes, my heart flinched. In them I saw Michael's small face, the way he used to look at me. If I had spoken back then, maybe my son wouldn't have grown into a man packed tight with anger. "Anna," I asked, my voice crackling like dry leaves, "if someone ever told you, 'Don't tell anyone,' what would you do?" She frowned, thinking, then said matter-of-factly, "I'd tell someone I trust. Secrets make people sick, Grandma." Her answer pierced me like a needle. I pressed my lips together, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. She'd said the thing I'd dodged for 40 years. Secrets had made me sick. They'd sealed my son's heart, too. After she went back to bed, I sat in the dark, scratching lightly at the tabletop. In my head, the old whisper returned, "Don't tell anyone." It braided with Anna's. Secrets make people sick. Two opposing sounds twisted together until I shook. I knew a choice was coming. Keep still as before, or lift the lid on the ticking box inside me. Outside the door, the silver watch lay quiet in the drawer. But I felt it waiting, and its hands couldn't stay still forever. Morning slid over a house pretending nothing had happened. Sunlight striped the rug through the curtains, but a crack still ran through me from the night before. Michael sat at the table with the paper, coffee steaming. Sarah did the dishes with careful calm. Anna quietly sketched in her little notebook. I creaked down the steps. Without looking up, Michael said just loud enough for me to hear, "Mom, next time don't bring up old stories in front of Anna. I don't want her hearing that stuff." I froze. It wasn't a request. It was an order. I sat across from him, throat tight. "Michael," I said softly, "there are things you need to know." He set his cup down hard. Porcelain struck wood like a chop of a blade. "I don't want to hear it, Mom. Your past isn't my business." Silence flooded the room. Sarah avoided my eyes. Anna's pencil stopped. Her eyes went round. And the memories poured in, kitchen light swaying yellow, shadows long on the wall. Little Michael curled on a chair, hands locked around a silver spoon. His father standing close, his shadow swallowing the boy. At the door, the knocking faster now. Tap, tap, tap. I stood just steps away, wanting to rush in but unable. A hand clamped my shoulder, a man's cold voice. "Don't interfere. Don't say a word." A chair scraped me back to the present. Michael stood and stalked off, aftertaste of burnt coffee trailing him. Sarah sighed and followed. Only Anna and I remained. She cocked her head, a casual question aimed like a needle. "Grandma, did my grandpa really exist?" I went blank. My heart seized. In my head, her question became the old whisper. "Don't tell anyone." I could only smile weakly and say nothing. But Anna kept staring, trying to find a crack in my silence. By afternoon, the house had the heavy quiet I hate. Michael and Sarah went shopping, which was a way to not see me. Anna hummed upstairs. I sat in the living room, fingers worrying the edge of the tablecloth, eyes on the lower drawer where the silver watch slept. For a moment I nearly opened it. Then I stopped, knowing that once the watch was seen, there would be no way back. Memory lit up, unbidden. A rainy night, glass fogged with breath. Little Michael on the porch, fists pounding the door. "Mom, open up!" Rain drowned the sound, but I heard every plea. Inside, his father turned the silver watch, face dark. "A boy has to learn silence," he said, voice like a blade. I shook, reaching for the latch, but a hiss in my ear. "If you say a word, everything falls apart." I was afraid. I left my child crying in the rain. I clutched my head, breath ragged. That memory, 40 years later, still cut like glass. Maybe that's why Michael has never forgiven me. He didn't have to say it. I saw the accusation in his eyes. "Grandma?" Anna again, curious eyes on me. I wiped my face. "What is it, honey?" "You're sad a lot. Is it because of Dad?" I swallowed. "Partly." She dragged a chair close, voice dropping like she was sharing a secret. "Dad doesn't get it, but you do. I trust you." The word trust made my heart shiver. No one had said it to me in years. I bit my lip against tears. On the wall, the pendulum clock kept time. But to me, it wasn't the present. It was those old knocks, layered over the tick-tock of the long-dead silver watch. Those beats bridged past and present and told me the crack in this family wouldn't heal if I stayed silent. I placed my hand on the drawer and whispered to myself, "A time will come to say it." The next day, I went down to the storage cellar. The air was damp. Dust lay on the boxes like ash after a fire. I looked for an old album and instead found a bank slip at the bottom of a carton. The ink had bled, but the signature was clear. David. I trembled. David, my brother, the one I thought had cut ties when my husband died. Why were David's papers in my basement? I held the receipt. My heart pounded. A vague thought surfaced. Was David tied to those old secrets? Could it be that Michael wasn't the son of the man who died, but... The thought chilled me to the bone. Upstairs, Michael appeared behind me. "What are you doing down here?" He saw the slip in my hand. His eyes darkened. "This is David's. Mom, what have you been hiding from me?" I tried to explain, but my throat closed. In that instant, I saw the same boy's eyes, suspicious, furious. Michael snatched the paper and skimmed it. "So my suspicions were right," he panted. "You and Uncle David." "No, Michael, you misunderstand." But he wasn't listening. He crushed the paper and left me in the damp dark. I sank to the floor, panic rising like floodwater. Was my past accurate? Or had I been duped by warped shards of memory? In the chaos, a fragment flashed. That rainy night, there was a man on the porch. Light sliced his face. I couldn't tell if it was my husband or David. The knocks tap, tap, tap hammered my ears. The child cried, and I stood in the kitchen, clutching the cold silver watch. The memory blurred. Only the tick-tock that never returned remained. That evening, the house felt like a wire about to snap. Michael slammed his door. The sound ran the length of the hall. Sarah tried to soothe him and got only a rigid shake of the head. I sat alone, fingertips tracing a crack in the chair arm, thinking of the bank receipt. David's name clear. The dates matched the period when my husband was still alive. So why? Why was it in my house? The question bored into my skull. Part of me wanted to believe Michael was wrong, that there was nothing sordid between me and David. Another part wasn't sure anymore. 40 years of silence had left my memory shattered like broken glass. I went to the kitchen and put on the kettle. Steam fogged the window. Then the burnt tea smell surged back so strong I could almost feel smoke threading into my lungs. Another fragment snapped in, the sharpest yet. My husband at the table, a paper in his hand. David beside him, thin, speaking low. I couldn't hear, just lips moving. Both of them glanced at me at once. In their eyes, a quiet pact. I shuddered and stepped back. The picture fell apart into darkness. Only the familiar knocks. Tap, tap, tap remained. So loud I clutched my head, heart pounding. Night came. I lay staring at the ceiling. Beyond the wall I heard Michael tossing, urgent footsteps back and forth. He couldn't sleep either. Maybe both of us were bound by the same nameless secret. I looked toward the drawer. I knew the silver watch lay inside, quiet as a stone on my heart. Its cracked face reflected the moonlight, reminding me that time can stop, but obsession never does. I shut my eyes, but instead of sleep, the old whisper, "Don't tell anyone." And in the dark, I wondered if I'd been lost from the very start. At dawn, the house was still. Sarah took Anna to school. Michael left without a word. I stayed behind, standing before the cabinet under the stairs. My hand trembled, but this time I didn't run. I pulled the drawer open. Light fell on the silver watch, a witness at rest, cracked face, old scratches like scars. I picked it up so cold and heavy my wrist ached. When the lid sprang open, inside there was more than silent hands. A small square of paper, folded neat. I unfolded it. The slanting script, my husband's. But the page was torn. Only half remained. The words, broken. "Forgive me. Don't let Michael know." My chest cinched tight. Forgive what? And why keep it from Michael? I sat and stared at every letter like I could piece together a ruined picture. In my head, memory rose. That night, 3 steady knocks. My husband at the kitchen table, eyes hollow, fingers shaking on a pen. David at his shoulder, whispering. I couldn't hear, only saw my husband nod and tuck the paper behind the watch. The reel jammed there. Now, with half a note in my hand, my lungs wouldn't work. Maybe the whole truth lived on the missing half, but it was gone. Sunlight pushed through the curtains, but inside me it was all black. I heard a tick-tock in my mind, the sound I thought had died 40 years ago. I didn't know if it was real or imagined. I gripped the watch and whispered, "Michael, you have to know, but how will you ever believe me?" That afternoon, Michael came home. His face was tight. His eyes slid past me. I sat in the living room. The silver watch lay on the table, the half-note tucked inside. "Michael," I rasped, "I need to show you this." He hesitated, surprise flickering when he saw the watch. "This thing, you still have it?" He picked it up, turned it over. For a blink, his eyes softened like when he was small, spinning it in his father's hands. Then it was gone. "What is this supposed to prove, Mom? Another relic you kept to keep me stupid?" I shook my head and handed him the half-note. "Read." His lips pressed tight as he took in the line. "Forgive me. Don't let Michael know." Anger flared in his eyes. "What does that mean? My father wanted you to hide something from me, or you hid something from him?" I reached for his hand. He jerked away as if burned. "Michael, there were things about your father you never knew, things I never fully understood. Why? Why did I have to grow up in this house of ghosts and silence?" His voice hit every corner of the room. I tried to say everything, but the fragments shattered again. A child's footsteps in the hall, a man's rough laugh in the kitchen, the burnt tea smell rising with cigarette smoke, and that refrain, "Don't tell anyone." I held my head, tears spilling. "My son, I'm sorry. I stayed silent too long." He turned away, voice raw. "Maybe you should keep being silent. Every time you speak, it just hurts more." He went upstairs, The steps dragged like a sentence. I sank into the chair, nails scraping the watch's face. Rain broke outside. Drops drummed the glass, the same old rhythm. Tap, tap, tap. I trembled. My heart answered. The note quivered, as if it wanted to finish itself. In that moment I understood. The watch wasn't only an anchor to memory, it was a summons. Time can halt, but a secret keeps breathing until it's named. That night I couldn't sleep. Rain laced the window, each drop tapping at my temples. I lay there, the watch on the bedside table, the half-note beneath like an open eye in the dark. I shut my eyes, and the memories didn't trickle, they surged, whole and merciless. I was back in the old kitchen, 1979. The fluorescent light flickered a sickly green. An ambulance wailed somewhere far off. Inside, everything was still. On the stove, the tea had boiled dry, the scorched smell biting. It mixed with the stink of disinfectant from an abandoned bottle. I gagged. 10-year-old Michael huddled in the corner, hands clutching the chair. His father towered, knuckles white on the silver watch. "I told you to be quiet. Men don't cry." His voice ripped the air like a blade. I stood close, wanting to wedge myself in, but my feet were glued. Knocking at the door, tap, tap, tap. I turned. No one was there. Or someone was, and I didn't dare look. Michael sobbed, small and broken, enough to enrage his father. The man raised his hand to strike. I screamed, but the scream shattered and died inside my skull. Instead, a whisper at my back. "Sit still. Don't interfere. Don't say a word." I spun. David's shadow hovered in the kitchen corner. My brother's eyes were black with something warning and pleading. I froze, not sure if I was seeing him or just a ghost. The image tilted and cracked. I lurched upright in bed, gasping, sweat gluing my shirt. The watch on the table lay open. Lightning flashed in its glass. The hands were stuck, as if time had chosen to stop that night. I buried my face and sobbed. I no longer knew what was true and what fear had fabricated. But one thing was certain. Something happened that night that should never happen again. I leaned against the headboard, breath sawing. Lightning flickered, and each flash cast my husband's silhouette on the wall, silver watch in his hand. His eyes bored into me, furious and desperate, binding me to a life sentence of silence. I shut my eyes. The rain turned to the sound of water dripping in the old kitchen. Burnt tea, acrid and medicinal stench. Little Michael at the door in the 1979 rain, soaking wet. His fists beat the glass. "Mom, open the door!" I moved to run, to fold him in my arms, but my body was stone. Inside, my husband's voice. "If you open that door, everything will come out." A chill slashed my spine. I remember it. Then the memory swung another way. David lunged between Michael and his father. "Enough!" my brother choked. Michael fell. His sobbing cracked. The silver watch hit the floor, rolling, rolling, then vanishing into a dark corner. I jolted awake again, pillow wet. My skull throbbed. Was that how it happened, or was my mind patching holes? In the hall, footsteps. Michael. He wasn't sleeping either. He walked back and forth, burdened with a past neither of us would open. The watch on the table caught a slash of lightning calling me. Inside, the half-note lay quiet. "Forgive me. Don't let Michael know." I whispered, shaking. "Son, you've lived your whole life in a half-truth. One day, you'll know it all." It felt like a promise and a curse. Outside, the rain didn't quit. And in it, 3 knocks tap. 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 Just like 1979. I covered my face, knowing the memories were no longer shadows. They were back full, violent, and they would sweep us both into the storm of truth. The next morning, I found Michael in his office. Light from the window cut hard lines across his tense face. He shuffled papers, busywork. "Michael," I began, "there's something you never understood about your father, about that night in 1979. He looked up, eyes cold. "I don't want to hear it. Your past ruined my childhood. I don't need more." I moved closer, fingers laced to keep them steady. "If you don't hear it, you'll keep misunderstanding me. You think I abandoned you, but that isn't the truth." He barked a laugh, brittle, dry. "Isn't it? When I was locked out in the rain, who stood at the door and didn't open it? You think I forgot?" I went still. In my head, the scene unrolled. Little Michael's face pressed to the wet glass, his hands drumming, rain with tears. Me, steps away, shackled by fear and that hiss. "Sit still, don't interfere." "Michael," I choked. "I was wrong. I never wanted to hurt you." He shook his head and looked down. "No, you wanted silence. So deep I had to wonder if I mattered at all." Another crack opened inside me. I reached for him. My feet wouldn't move. In the hall, the wall clock ticked cold and even. A new fear rose. Even if I told the truth, he might never believe. He left, the door thudding like a verdict. I folded into the chair, shaking. Every time I tried to speak, another wall went up. That night I rifled the old drawers. In a dusty cassette box, I found my husband's recorder. I pressed play. The reels turned slow, a thin hiss, a cough, a spoon clink, and a man's voice, shredded. "Don't hurt the boy." That was all. The tape warped and squealed and died. I clutched the machine. Whose voice was it? My husband's? David's? In the dark, only the clock's tick answered my pulse. Meanwhile, Michael drove alone through the rain. Streetlights smeared long on the wet road. His own memories swarmed. He was 9. His father loomed, hand raised, breath full of liquor. "Shut up. Men aren't weak." Through the cracked door, he saw his mother watching, eyes wide, unmoving. That feeling clung to him for years, abandoned in the worst moment. He slammed the wheel. The car veered, then steadied. He pulled over, panting. The old line returned, warped and broken. "Don't hurt the boy." He closed his eyes, unsure what was true anymore. At home, I held the recorder, heart heavy. The snippet was too short to prove anything but enough to tear the seal on my silence. I knew Michael would have to hear it. Whether he'd believe it or dismiss it as another warped shard was another wound. Over and over in my head. "Don't hurt the boy." And I whispered, "My son, I failed to protect you, but I won't let this secret kill us again." On the weekend, we gathered for dinner. Sarah set out the roast chicken, steam curling up. The smell warmed the room. Anna chattered about school, the only lightness in the air. Michael sat quiet, eyes fogged. I knew I should keep quiet, but some words forced their way out. When Anna asked, "Grandma, what was Grandpa like when Dad was my age?" I paused. Then, reflexively, I murmured, "He wasn't always kind. One night." Michael slammed his knife down. "Mom!" Anna jumped, her eyes widened. Sarah stepped in. "Let it go. Let the past sleep." But I couldn't stop. The crack was too wide now. "Michael, do you remember the rainy night in 1979? The room congealed. Even the drizzle outside seemed to hush. Michael shot to his feet, face blanching. "Do you want to humiliate me in front of my wife and daughter? I told you, drop it." I shook, voice breaking. "But it's the truth you've never faced." He pushed back his chair and left. The sound scraped the floor raw. Sarah looked at me, fear and reproach entwined. Anna sat stunned, spoon clinking to the plate. A fragment followed on its heels. Another dinner table, oil lamp light. My husband at the head, face ruddy, glass brimming. Little Michael curled in the corner. David outside the window, rain blurring his outline. His eyes cut through the glass, then vanished as the knocks rose. Tap, tap, tap. I blinked back to now. The chicken was going cold. Inside me, the fire of memory still burned. I sat alone after, air thick as paste. Sarah cleared in silence, movements brisk, sweeping scraps away as if she could sweep the past with them. Anna tugged my sleeve. "Grandma, I want to know about that night. Why is Dad scared?" I squeezed her small hand, shaking. "Some things, when you're older." But I knew the question was ink on the page, it would not fade. The front door opened. David stepped in, thin gray at the temples, exhausted eyes. I froze. How many years since he'd crossed this threshold? Michael came down the stairs, stopped cold. "Uncle, why are you here?" David avoided his gaze and looked at me. "Sis, when will you finally speak? The secret is killing us." The room went still. Michael's hand gripped the banister, eyes sparking. "What do you know? What do you know about my childhood?" David didn't answer right away. He sighed, voice rough. "More than you think. Because that night, I was there." My memories tottered. The rain-fogged window. David on the porch, 3 knocks. Tap, tap, tap. Michael sobbing, fists on a locked door. My husband's dark face, the silver watch clenched. Me in the middle, snared by a cord of fear. That past braided itself into the present. I couldn't breathe. David's eyes asked me, "How much longer will you deny it?" Michael burst out, tearing the silence. "If Mom won't say it, I will. She left me out there. I remember." I cried out. "No, son, I didn't leave you. I was forced quiet." No one believed me. Michael stormed out. The door hit like a blow. David sagged. Anna wrapped her arms around me, whispering, "I believe you, Grandma. But what happened that night?" I looked into her clear eyes. Pain stabbed. I knew I couldn't hold it much longer. Silence widened every crack. After that fight, the house sank into a heavy state. Michael dodged me. Sarah turned cool. Only Anna crept down to keep me company. David hadn't left. He sat in the living room, quiet as if waiting for the inevitable. I gathered my courage. "David," I whispered, "what exactly did you see that night?" He looked up, eyes clouded. "Don't you remember? Your husband at the table, drunk, gripping the watch, forcing Michael to be silent. You stood there like you were tied, and I knocked. I shivered. Tap, 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 so clear it could have been yesterday." He went on, "I pulled Michael inside when your husband raised his hand. You didn't see it all because you turned away. I took the blow for the boy." I reeled into a chair. Shards began to fit. The crying, the knocking, the trembling hand, it all matched. But something was still in shadow. I remembered my husband and David whispering as if they were hiding something. So what was the truth? "What about the paper in the watch?" I asked. "What did he write?" David's mouth tightened. He shook his head. "I don't know. I think it was a confession. He did something unforgivable." Conflicting currents rose in me. I wanted to believe him. But there was a flicker in his eyes that made me uneasy, like he was keeping a sliver for himself. That night I sat alone in the kitchen again. The watch lay open. The note gaped like a stubborn wound. I hauled up another box from the cellar. In it I found odd receipts, hospital bills and prescriptions signed by my husband, but paid by David. I stared. Why had my brother paid those? Maybe he wasn't just a witness. Maybe he was woven into it. Another memory clicked into place. Little Michael on a hospital bed, head bandaged, eyes empty. David in the hall, talking urgently with a doctor. My husband absent. I found him outside, eyes bloodshot, head in his hands. On the table next to him, the silver watch lay quiet, moonlight caught on its cracked face. That image sliced me. Something huge had happened, but a span of time was missing from my mind from when Michael hit the floor to when I saw him in the hospital. I held my head and cried. Some truths were clearer, his father's violence, David stepping in. But why those bills in David's name? And the half-note, what was I meant to forgive? Footsteps. Michael in the doorway, eyes dark. Digging up the past again? I held out a bill. He glanced, then snorted. This proves one thing. Uncle David took care of me. Not you. Never you. I reeled. The sentence twisted the knife. I wanted to scream, to grab him and explain, but couldn't. All I could hear was the old knocking. Tap, tap, tap. I knew. If I didn't find the final piece, he would always see me as the one who left him, and the family's crack would yaw wide. At dusk, I watched the drizzle and held the heavy watch. The shards kept spinning, but now they started to stack into a truth that squeezed my heart. I remembered the night. Michael at the glass, hair slicked with rain, small fists hammering. "Mom, let me in." I ran to the door. My hand touched the latch. One movement I could have opened it and gathered my boy. Behind me, my husband's voice thick with drink. "If you open it, I won't spare him." I went still. In that moment, I chose. I pulled my hand back. Truth slammed like a blade. I was the one who slid the bolt. No one forced me. No one held me. I left Michael in the rain, shivering, crying hoarse. I broke, sobbing. For 40 years I'd blamed my husband, David, circumstance. But in that second, the betrayer was me. The watch slipped from my hand and hit the floor, the sound shrill. Its lid flew open. The note fell and flipped, revealing a faint line I'd missed. "I'm sorry for what she did." I held my breath. Was that apology meant for me? Or for me to pass to Michael? Those tremulous words turned the picture. Maybe my husband knew that what cut deepest that night was my hand leaving the latch. I sat a long time, the paper shaking. The line pounded like a gavel. "I'm sorry for what she did." Perhaps he saw me pull back, saw me leave the boy in the storm. Tears ran hot, useless against the corrosion of guilt. I wanted to run to Michael, to confess, but my legs were lead. 40 years of silence had made me a prisoner in my own house. In the hall, steps again. Michael at the door, tall now, but his shadow on the floor trembled like a child's. "Still can't let go of the past, Mom," his voice rasped. I turned, clutching the note. "Michael, I have to tell you the truth." He folded his arms, eyes like ice. "I'm exhausted. I've lived with fragments and you always denied them. I don't want to hear it." I shook my head, choking. "No, you have to. That night, it was me." I pulled my hand off the latch. The air froze. I heard my heart thudding like a drum. He stared, eyes glossing. "What are you saying?" "I was afraid," I sobbed. "Your father threatened. I didn't open the door. I left you in the rain. It was my fault." Silence fell like snow. Then he laughed a bitter, empty sound. "At last, you admit it. So I wasn't crazy. I remembered right." He turned away, voice breaking. "Do you know I've waited my whole life to hear that? And now that I have it, means nothing." The door closed behind him, and I crumpled. The watch lay on the floor, my warped reflection in its cracked face. I touched it and whispered, "Forgiveness. Is there any left?" Outside, the rain finally stopped. Inside me, the storm had only begun. That evening, the house held its breath. Michael sat in the living room, eyes raw, a half-empty bottle at his elbow. David stood by the window, hands in pockets, watching the mist. I came down with the watch in my fist, my final verdict. "Michael," I said, shaking, "I won't keep you in the dark. That night, you weren't imagining it. It happened." He looked up, anger and despair fighting in him. "I've known for years. I wanted to hear it from you. I wanted you to say you left me in the rain. And now you said it. What's left to save?" I cried, but went on. "Your father was drunk. He held the watch and forced your silence. I was afraid and didn't open the door. But there's more. David was there. My brother pulled you in. He stopped your father." Michael turned to David, tears standing. "So you knew? All these years you said nothing. Why?" David's fists knotted. "Because your father said if I spoke, he'd destroy us all." "I was an outsider, Michael. I tried to save you, but I was a coward too." The air went heavier. The shards arranged themselves. 3 knocks. The smell of burnt tea. A child's face behind rainy glass. My hand leaving the latch. I knelt, covering my face. I was wrong. Everything you suffered. Because I had no courage. You have every right to hate me. But you need the truth. Michael shook his head, tears falling. "I don't know who to hate, Dad. You? Or myself for surviving?" I reached to hold him. He pushed me away. Truth was out, but the distance yawned. The room hardened around us. Michael collapsed into a chair, clutching his head. David stood a long time, then spoke, his voice trembling like he was tearing himself open. "Michael, there's something else. That night wasn't just about your father's rage. Something else happened. Something I've never said." I turned to my brother. My heart cinched. He took off his glasses. The hurt in his eyes was bare. "When I pulled you in, I shoved your father. He hit his head on the table edge. I thought he only blacked out. But he never woke up." Air vanished from the room. Michael went pale. "You're saying my father died because of you?" David's tendons stood out. "I didn't mean to. I was trying to protect you. When he didn't move, your mother and I chose silence. We let people believe it was drink and an accident on the road." I clutched my chest, gasping. "Michael, I couldn't tell. If it came out, we would be destroyed. You were so small." Michael shot to his feet, eyes blazing. "So my whole life is a lie. He didn't die in an accident. He died from a fall you caused and a silence you kept?" I took a step. He backed away, as if the darkness around me would swallow him. The wall clock ticked. The rain tapped at the eaves. The old whisper roared, "Don't tell anyone." He looked between us, hurt and fury flooding his face. "You both betrayed me. One caused the death. One left me in the rain. And for 40 years, you made me live inside a secret I never knew." He bolted. The door slammed like an axe. I dropped. The silver watch skittered, lid sprung. The hand stuck. Moonlight flared on the glass. David's hand hovered over my shoulder, voice ragged. "Sis, the truth has blown apart. The price may be Michael." I wept, knowing there was still one more secret one even David hadn't spoken. And it waited. By morning, the house was empty. Michael had gone. The suitcase by the stairs was missing. Sarah left a note. "He needs time. Don't call." I read it, hollow as a vacant room. David slumped at the kitchen table, gaunt. "Maybe I should confess to the police," he said. "I've hidden too long." I shook my head. "That won't bring Michael back. It'll only break what's left." Outside, rain stains freckled the walk. I stepped onto the porch, searching for the little boy who once stood shivering at the door. Now he was grown and gone, maybe forever. Inside, I fetched the silver watch. It lay still, hands frozen at that old second. I wondered if time never forgives those who forget their duty. In my chest, the knock sounded again. Not a haunting, an alarm. No secret stays buried. Anna ran in and hugged me tight. "Grandma, Dad's mad, but I believe you." Tears spilled. I stroked her hair. "You're the reason I can still breathe. Don't ever learn silence from me." David's eyes shone, but I saw another fear hiding there, one more thing unsaid. By late afternoon, the house was steeped in soft amber. I sat with the silver watch in front of me. It was quiet, hands fixed, yet I felt it staring, forbidding me to forget. David came in and touched the chair. "I'm going," he said softly. "Michael needs time. I only make it worse." I looked up, heart pinched. "David, before you go, what are you still hiding? Your eyes have never told me everything." He was silent a long time. Then he whispered, "That night wasn't only a fall. Your husband signed a paper, a will, and I'm the only one with a copy." I went cold. "A will?" He nodded. "He left everything to Michael, but with a condition, that the truth of that night be buried." The floor tilted under me. So the whole inheritance, the long silence, had been built on a vicious bargain. "Do you still have it?" I asked, my voice unsteady. David nodded. "I never gave it to Michael. I was afraid it would break him further." I gripped the watch. "No, David. He has to know. Otherwise he'll live forever in a half-life." Anna thumped down the stairs with her notebook. "Grandma, will Dad come back?" I looked at her, my heart aching. "He'll come back when he's learned how to forgive. I just don't know who he'll forgive." Outside, the dark gathered. I set the silver watch back in the drawer and murmured, "Time at last has spoken." As the drawer slid shut, I caught a flicker of unease in David's eyes. I understood. One last shard of truth still lay hidden sharp enough to break us all again. I folded Anna into my arms and whispered a promise for the next generation. Don't let silence kill this family ever again. The house settled into quiet. Only the wall clock kept time steady, insistent reminding me the story wasn't truly over.